Zach Osterman from the Indy Star with us. Zachary, how are you, sir?
Hey, how are you doing?
Great. This holding this turkey has nothing to do with you. It just happened to be sitting here. Um, Getting close to Thanksgiving. I'll talk about that later. Um, Talking about Indiana basketball earlier, Zach. I know it's against Bethune-Cookman and Morehead State, but the eye test, especially last night, looking better and better from a shooting standpoint, but also a smart basketball standpoint. The free throws, obviously, a huge jump up for them. And hearing, I forget, may have been Trey Galloway that said that they started taking them seriously in practice, which I'm not exactly sure what that means, but I understand that whatever it was, it got them in the right mental frame of shooting free throws, because had Jalen Hood-Schifino not missed his, I think they may have set a record last night.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you don't know what that means, specifically Galloway. I mean, sometimes it's something like you have to shoot 80 free throws before you leave practice, but then you're just shooting free throws to shoot free throws. You're not shooting them with anything on the line or, with anything to lose. I do think just more broadly, last night was the best we've seen Indiana look offensively. And I think there were some things that really crystallized for Indiana last night. I thought point guard play was fantastic. People will talk about the three-point line. They had a good half and then a half where they really kind of abandoned the three. They didn't really need it, so they just let it go. I think it's interesting that through two games, Indiana's 39th in the country, according to Kim Pomeroy, in adjusted or in average possession length. They are playing faster than almost any other team in the country, and that's for a team that was pretty much dead middle of that stat last year nationally, and obviously under Archie Miller typically was in the bottom half of the country, if not even further down than that in that statistic. I just think Indiana looks very good offensively. I think they look fluid. I think they look aggressive. They don't make a ton of mistakes. I mean, last night, 13 turnovers to 27 assists. Turnover percentage a little high, 18.6%, but you can live with that when you're averaging more than 1.4 points per possession and when you're assisting 27 shots on 35 made baskets. So in general, I just think Indiana looks very good offensively, and I think last night's maybe a valuable lesson for Indiana that if you're willing to embrace the three-point line a little bit, if you knock in a few threes, and if you hit your free throws, offense gets a lot easier because suddenly you don't feel squeezed for points, if that makes sense. And you look up, and at the end of the game, there's 8-9 more points on the board, and so you didn't feel like every possession down there. Of course, this is in games that are going to be more competitive than what last night's was. But you didn't feel like every possession down the stretch was live or die because you did the easy stuff to get yourself the easy points to make things a little bit less complicated.
Well, and last night, you brought this up. We've talked about it earlier in the show. The statistic that did stand out to me in watching this team play also last night was the 27 assists on 35 made shots. I mean, I think that there's a chemistry there that I don't know we've seen in the past. And I think, there's just this – I talked about in the offseason, I thought Mike Woodson did a really nice job of expressing confidence in his players and giving them the not giving them a short leash or putting the red light on them to shoot. He's talking about their confidence and giving them that confidence to shoot the basketball. But there's also a confidence among the teammates that they're going to get it done, just to kind of trust within each other. And I know it's Bethune-Cookman. I know they've played two teams that they should handle the way they've handled. But to me, through these first couple games, I just think there's a team chemistry there that we haven't seen in a while.
No, I think that's fair. And I think what you do in games like this is you're kind of putting a pin in different things. You're saying, okay, they hit 8 threes in one half, and it was mostly the product of really good offense. Will they do that when the competition's different? The bench has looked really, really good. In not just, Jordan Geronimo had 11 points and 4 rebounds last night, and Trey Galloway hit a couple threes. But you look at the plus minus, the bench has been consistently really impactful in terms of almost sometimes more impactful than starters in terms of growing leads and expanding gaps. And these are things that you just sort of make notes of in games like this. And then we'll watch them play Xavier a week from today, and we'll say, okay, did that prove to be true? Did that prove to be true, etc. But I think that I don't think you're wrong that there just seems to be more confidence in the collective, both in terms of skill and also possibly just in terms of sort of everyone appreciating the system and everyone appreciating all I need to do is go to my spot and the ball will find me. And if I have a shot, I'm going to take it. And if I don't, I'll reverse it because the ball will find somebody who's got a good look, because everybody on the floor can shoot. Everybody on the floor can score. We're not carrying passengers the way we were a year ago, where sometimes you'd look at Indiana lineups and say, geez, who's doing the scoring for this five, and how lopsided can a defense get toward that player or those players? And I think, and I'm, this is what my former colleague Dustin DePerrick would call a shameless plug. It's what I wrote about last night. I think a lot of that is coming from Xavier Johnson and Jalen Hood-Schifino, neither of whom has had, what you would consider like an eye-popping offensive night. Last night they combined for 15 points in the I'm losing my mind. The Morehead State game, they only combined for 11 points. Johnson only played 20 minutes in that game. He had foul trouble. But if you look at their numbers in that game against Morehead State, they had 7 assists to 4 turnovers. They had 3 rebounds between them. Last night, they were even better. They had 9 rebounds between them, 14 assists to 5 turnovers. They finished a combined plus 55. And you start to think back to what we asked in the preseason about what are the questions we have about this team. Well, one of the big ones was, can those two coexist? Can you play both of those guys together? And if you do, what can they do for their teammates? And I think the answers to both of those questions, through to admittedly comfortable wins that should have been comfortable and were, the answers to both of those questions have been, exceedingly affirmative at this point.
But a great sign for Hoosier fans, though, most of all, to see this in the early part of the season, because with a big chunk of I shouldn't say a big chunk, but a big chunk of production for this team coming from freshmen in Jalen Hood-Schifino and Malik Renew, who is just going to be a problem for teams as we get further into the season. But it's not just those guys. You've got Miller Kopp looking very confident now. He didn't even take a shot in the first half of the Morehead State game. Nails 2 beautiful in transition threes in the second half of that game, and now has gone 6 of his last 8 from behind the arc. As good a stretch as he's had at IU. You've got Trey Galloway, who is looking confident and good shooting the ball. So they have weapons that they simply didn't have last year with guys that were here.
Yeah, I mean, I think about this. If you've ever played a sport and you've been on a team that's good, I mean, you just have more confidence. And you have more confidence because your teammates are good. You have more confidence because they'll pick you up. I mean, it's a horrible comparison, but like when I've played on soccer teams where I'm, because I play spring, summer, winter here in town. When I play on teams where I know I'm one of the worst players on the team, I tend to play well because I know that all the players around me will pick me up when I make mistakes. They'll put me in good positions to succeed. When I do something that, when I manage to make a good pass or a good interception or whatever, I'm pretty confident that that's going to lead to something good happening for my team because all the guys around me are good. All the guys around me are talented. And, we got so caught up in kind of this idea of, ending the Indiana needing to end the NCAA tournament streak. Can they power through Big Ten play? Can they beat Purdue? All these things that it's sort of kind of, I think, from an Indiana fan's perspective, these streaks that had gone on too long last season, that sometimes I think we forgot it was still Mike Woodson's first season.
Yeah.
And it was still year one of a new coach, a largely new roster, etc. And I think you just see much more of a kind of year two. I mean, Trace Jackson Davis has 36 and 13 in these first two games, and we've barely talked about it. At least I know. I don't know if you guys have. It hasn't really occurred that much to me. It's been quiet, but it's been quiet because other guys have looked really good. You mentioned Trey Galloway, Jordan Geronimo, Malik Renew. I would throw. I mean, quietly. I know his scoring numbers aren't always there, but I would throw Tamar Bates in there. He's second on this team in plus minus through two games.
Well, he's definitely has an aggressive mentality anytime he's in there, whether it's offensively or defense. He's looking to score or he's guarding. He's every like I watch these guys in pregame warmups. They look different this year than last year. Just in pregame warmups, they're getting their shots off quicker. They look more determined. They're moving and cutting harder in warmups, and I think that's one of the big differences. That they were, it's like they were going through the motions last year, and this year every moment on the court is serious and taken seriously, even in pregame warmups.
Well, I don't know if they're going through the motions last year, but I think when you aren't confident, whether it's in yourself, whether it's in your teammates, whether it's in what your coach is asking you to do, because it's year one, and you're going through the motions. What you're doing is you're literally going through the motions because in your head you're having to think your way through everything. You're having to think your way through step one, and then step two, and then step three, and then step four, etc. Whereas I think a lot more of it is just instinctive for Indiana this year. I think they look better defensively. And again, listen, it's two games against teams they should have beaten comfortably, and they covered. I mean, give them credit. They comfortably covered the spread, whether it was Vegas, Ken Palm, Torvik, whatever you want to use. They comfortably
covered the spread was 30, and they covered that by another 20.
Yeah, so give them credit for that. But we also recognize that these games aren't going to determine where this team's ceiling is. But you do see a difference in this team, in the confidence it has in itself, in the confidence it has in just sort of like how it needs to play, how its coach needs it to play, what its coach is asking it to do. When you said they were going through the motions last year, like I said, I don't think that was. I think sometimes that can, and I don't think you meant it this way, but I think sometimes that can have a connotation for people that guys are lazy. I think they were going through the motions because they had to think their way through things.
Right. Yeah, I meant that they were just doing the drills where now they are just uber focused on making
and everything seems like it's coming sort of easily and secondhand. Again, like 7-8 years ago in this job, I would not, last night I wrote from home because I was so late. I just came home and I filed really late. I wrote that story. I would like to think anyway, smoothly, easily, whatever. 7-8 years ago, I would not have written so smoothly. Why? Because over time I've learned how to do what the Star wants me to do, how to do it what I perceive as well, according to how I want to, do that. Because obviously, you'll always have your own sort of personal imprint or whatever you want to say. And these guys, I mean, players make systems as much as systems make players. But you learn that comfort, you learn that confidence. And we heard, to their credit, to be fair to them, we heard throughout the preseason from players like Trace Jackson Davis, Xavier Johnson, Tamar Bates, Race Thompson. We're just more comfortable this year. Xavier Johnson told me a story about preseason where he totally admitted, like, I was swimming last year, like, coach was drawing up plays and I was looking around thinking, what is this? Like, what is going on? What am I supposed to do here? And he said he had a moment in like a summer workout where Mike Woodson stopped it and said, I don't think you know the play. I think we need to stop it because I don't think you know what you're supposed to do. And Xavier Johnson just shot back, yes, I do. Let me show you. I can show you what the play is. And his point was like, we're just more comfortable. It's more second nature. And when sort of the structure is second nature and the instruction that you carry onto the floor is second nature, one, everybody is going to play more free because nobody's thinking, they're just playing. And two, a coach can start to do more. A coach can start to get more advanced and more nuanced. And that's the sort of thing we probably haven't, if Indiana is capable of this, seen a lot of yet, because you're not going to run your good stuff. You're not going to put your most intricate sort of, cleverest stuff on film against bad teams. But, I just think Indiana is more comfortable with this coach, and probably this coach is more comfortable with Indiana. And you're seeing that reflected in some of these performances.